"You really don't deserve this necklace, you know," my husband whispered with that cold smirk of his as he clasped the gold chain around my neck. His breath brushed against my ear, but there was no tenderness in it, only malice. "But I bought it anyway, just so people won't call me stingy." The words sliced through me sharper than any knife. My heart dropped into the pit of my stomach. Around us, the birthday guests froze, their laughter dying midair, their smiles twisting awkwardly. The room, once filled with the soft hum of celebration, now felt like a stage where I was the unwilling actor in my husband's cruel performance. I forced myself to breathe, my hands trembling as they brushed against the necklace. The gold felt heavy, suffocating, like a collar chained around my throat. My cheeks burned with humiliation, knowing every eye in the room was on me. And then I saw her, Clara, my husband's sister. She sat in the corner, her eyes fixed on me with a hunger so raw it made my skin crawl. She wasn't hiding it. Her gaze locked on that necklace like it was oxygen, like every breath she took depended on it being hers. Her lips parted slightly, and her fingers twitched as if she could already feel the weight of the gold against her own skin. I looked back at my husband. His smirk hadn't faltered. He wanted me to wear his insult like jewelry, to choke on his so-called generosity. But instead, something in me snapped. I lifted my chin, staring him directly in the eye. My voice shook at first, but as the words left me, they hardened with each syllable. "If it's such a burden for you to gift your wife," I said slowly, every word laced with ice, "maybe someone else deserves it more." Gasps filled the air. My husband's smirk twitched, almost faltering. Clara's eyes widened, her body leaning forward as if she couldn't believe what she was hearing. Deliberately, I reached up, unclasped the necklace, and let it dangle for a moment in my fingers. The gold chain glittered in the dim light, catching everyone's attention. And then, without hesitation, I crossed the room. All eyes followed me. My heels clicked sharply against the tiled floor, each step echoing louder than the last. When I reached Clara, I didn't smile. I didn't hesitate. I dropped the necklace into her open palm and whispered coldly, "Here, enjoy it." The air left her lungs in a sharp gasp. Her fingers snapped shut around the chain like claws, clutching it to her chest. She looked at me, not with gratitude, but with triumph, as though she had just stolen something that was always meant to be hers. That night, she wore it like a crown, refusing to take it off even as she slept. But the very next day, Clara was gone, missing. And what I later discovered about that necklace made my blood run cold. Before I continue, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming shocking stories. When Clara didn't show up the next morning, I wasn't surprised. She had always been dramatic. She loved to storm out of places, disappear for hours, then return with some excuse or another. But by noon, when her phone went unanswered and her apartment door remained locked from the outside, the whispers began. And those whispers turned into accusations. "She was wearing that necklace last night, wasn't she?" someone said, their voice sharp with curiosity. "Yes, she was. She wouldn't even take it off when she left," another replied. "And who gave it to her?" Their eyes shifted, to me. I felt the heat of suspicion burning against my skin. My husband's smirk was gone now, replaced with something far more dangerous: calculation. He stood across the room, arms folded, eyes narrow, like a man who had just found the perfect opportunity to twist the knife. "She disappeared the day after you gave her the necklace," he said coldly, loud enough for everyone to hear. Interesting timing, don't you think? The audacity of it made my knees weak. He was turning this on me. But to understand why Clara's disappearance and that cursed necklace haunted me so much, you have to know the history. Clara wasn't just my sister-in-law. She was my husband's shadow. From the day I married him, she never left our lives. Always around, always judging, always competing. She had this way of making me feel like an intruder in my own marriage. If I wore a new dress, Clara would show up the next day in something tighter, flashier. If I cooked a meal, she'd accidentally bring over something more elaborate, criticizing my food with a smile. If I gave my husband a gift, she'd give him one better, bragging that no one knows him like I do. And my husband? He encouraged it. He let her stay, let her meddle, let her poison the air I breathed. But what I never knew, not until much later, was that Clara and my husband shared secrets. Ugly secrets. Ones that could destroy both of them. That necklace? It wasn't just jewelry. It wasn't just a birthday present. It was evidence. And giving it to her had set everything in motion. The day before the party, I'd overheard them whispering in the kitchen. Clara's voice was frantic. "You promised me, Daniel. You said it was safe." "It is safe," my husband hissed. "No one knows what it means except us. And as long as you keep your mouth shut, we're fine." I'd walked in, and they both went silent, pretending they were discussing Christmas gifts. But Clara's eyes had darted to the small velvet box on the counter. A box I now knew contained that necklace. So when he fastened it around my neck with those cruel words, "You don't deserve this," I realized it wasn't meant for me at all. It was meant for Clara, a token, a bribe, a reminder of their little secret. And by handing it to her, I had unknowingly signed her fate. The morning after her disappearance, the police arrived. Not because anyone filed a report, but because Clara's car had been found abandoned on the side of the road. The driver's door wide open, the necklace gone. "Mrs. Johnson," the detective asked me, "when was the last time you saw Clara?" My throat tightened. "Last night, at my birthday dinner. I gave her the necklace my husband gifted me." The room gasped again, just as they had the night before. The detective raised an eyebrow. "You gave it to her?" "Yes," I whispered, my voice breaking. "He said I didn't deserve it. She wanted it more. So I gave it away." My husband slammed his fist on the table. "Don't twist this, detective. My wife is bitter. She's trying to drag Clara down with her nonsense." But the detective didn't look convinced. He leaned closer. "Do you know if the necklace had any significance?" I shook my head. But in that moment, a memory hit me so hard my knees buckled. Clara's triumphant smile, the way she clutched the chain to her chest, whispering under her breath, "Finally, it's mine." And for the first time, I realized she wasn't just admiring jewelry, she was holding on to something powerful, something she believed was owed to her. By the end of that week, Clara's disappearance was on every news channel. Headlines screamed, "Woman vanishes hours after family dinner." "Last seen wearing a gold necklace. Husband's family under investigation." And through it all, my husband kept pointing the finger at me. "She humiliated Clara. She drove her over the edge. She's responsible." But late one night, as I sat alone, the truth crept into my mind like poison. Clara hadn't just vanished. She'd been silenced. And the reason why? That necklace. Because what I later learned about it, and the secret it carried, made my blood run cold. The whispers didn't stop. Everywhere I went, I felt the sting of their judgment. At the grocery store, at church, even on the quiet street outside my home. That's her, the wife who gave away the necklace. They say she and Clara hated each other. Wouldn't be surprised if she snapped. I kept my head down, but inside the rage boiled. It wasn't just the gossip. It was my husband feeding it. Each day he grew colder, crueler, twisting the story in ways that made me out to be the villain. She humiliated Clara in front of everyone. Don't you think that could push someone over the edge? He told the detective one afternoon. I saw her glaring at Clara like she wanted her gone, he whispered to neighbors. But then, something happened that shifted everything. 3 days after Clara's disappearance, the police returned. This time, they weren't just asking questions. They had evidence. Detective Harris laid a clear plastic bag on the table. Inside was a small jewelry pouch. My breath caught. I recognized it instantly. The same velvet pouch that had once held the necklace. We found this, Harris said, his eyes locked on my husband. In Clara's abandoned car. My husband's face drained of color. So, it's hers. She left with it. Interesting, Harris murmured, because the necklace wasn't inside, just the pouch, which means someone took it. I froze. Clara hadn't simply vanished. She'd been stripped of the very thing she clung to like life itself. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in the dark, replaying Clara's last words to me. The way she had clutched the chain, whispering, "Finally, it's mine. Mine." Why had she said that? Why claim it as if it was something she had fought for all along? I went to the attic, where dusty boxes from my late mother-in-law's things were stored. She had passed years ago, but her belongings remained untouched. My hands shook as I sifted through old letters, photo albums, scraps of faded ribbon, until I found it. An envelope, yellowed, brittle, tucked deep into the lining of an old trunk. On the front, in elegant handwriting, it read, "For Clara, to be given on her 30th birthday." My stomach dropped. Clara had just turned 30. I tore it open. Inside was a letter that changed everything. "Clara, my darling, this necklace holds more than beauty. It holds proof. Proof of the savings your father left behind. I've hidden the details in the clasp for only you to know. It's your safety, your inheritance. You're right. If anyone else holds it, they can take everything from you. Guard it with your life." My pulse thundered in my ears. Proof? Hidden in the clasp? I ran to my bedroom, grabbed the small box the necklace had originally come in, and examined the chain more carefully. At first glance, it was ordinary, but then I noticed a faint seam along the clasp. With trembling fingers, I pried it open. Inside was a folded slip of parchment, so small it had almost disappeared into the metal. It was a bank account number, along with a code. That was when I realized the necklace wasn't just jewelry. It was the key to Clara's father's fortune. And now she was gone. The next morning, I confronted my husband. I waited until he was sipping his coffee, pretending to read the paper, smug in his performance of a concerned brother. "You knew, didn't you?" I said softly. He froze. "Knew what?" "That the necklace wasn't for me. It was for Clara. You didn't buy it, you kept it, hid it, waited until you could use it against her." His jaw tightened. "You're losing your mind." I slammed the parchment on the table. "Her father's money. It was all in here, and you knew it. That's why you smirked when you gave it to me. That's why she whispered, 'Finally, it's mine.' Because it was. And now she's gone." For the first time, I saw something flicker in his eyes. Not anger, not even fear, but satisfaction. And it chilled me to the bone. That night, I called Detective Harris. I handed him the parchment, told him everything I had discovered. His expression was grim, but determined. "This explains a lot," he said. "If the necklace held access to money, well, people have killed for far less." I nodded, my chest tight. "So what happens now?" "We investigate," Harris replied. "But Mrs. Johnson, if your husband knew about this, if he stood to gain from Clara's disappearance, then we're no longer looking at you as the suspect." For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt the weight shift. But what I didn't know then was that the deeper the investigation went, the darker the truth would become. Because Clara's disappearance wasn't just about greed, it was about betrayal that ran far deeper than I could have ever imagined. And soon, that betrayal would come knocking at my own door. The following week was a blur of police visits, whispered rumors, and sleepless nights. I thought I had reached the peak of my suffering, but I was wrong, because the truth was about to come crashing down on me. Detective Harris returned on a rainy Wednesday. He didn't come alone. 2 other officers followed him into my living room, their boots tracking mud onto the rug. His face was grave as he spoke. "Mrs. Johnson, we've located Clara's car again. But this time there's more." My heart thudded painfully. "More?" He nodded. "A hidden compartment in the trunk. Inside we found documents, bank transfers, statements, all linked to Clara's father's estate. It seems she knew about the inheritance. But here's the twist. The transfers were made recently, and they weren't going to Clara's account." I swallowed hard. "Then, to whose?" Harris's eyes flicked toward me, then shifted deliberately to my husband, who had just entered the room with his usual air of arrogance. "To his," Harris said flatly. The world tilted. "What?" I gasped. How could that be?" My husband chuckled dryly, running a hand through his hair. "This is ridiculous. Clara trusted me. She probably asked me to handle things. She wasn't good with money. Everyone knows that." But Harris wasn't convinced. He laid down a stack of papers, bank slips with my husband's signature. Bold, confident strokes that left no room for denial. "Clara's missing, and these transfers were authorized with your name. Care to explain?" For the first time, I saw him falter, just for a moment. Then his mask slipped back on. "Forgery," he snapped. "Someone set me up." But deep in my gut, I knew he wasn't set up. He was the setup. Later that night, I searched our bedroom when he stepped out to make a call. I don't know what pushed me, maybe desperation, maybe instinct, but I opened his locked drawer with the spare key he thought I didn't know about. And there it was. The necklace. Not in Clara's pouch, not hidden away in some bank vault, but right there in my husband's drawer, coiled like a venomous snake. My hands shook as I picked it up. For weeks I had thought Clara disappeared with it. But no, my husband had it all along, which meant one terrifying thing. He had seen Clara last. When he came back into the room, I was waiting. "You lied," I whispered, holding up the necklace. "You told the police Clara left with this, but it's been here, with you, the whole time." He froze. I pressed further, my voice trembling with fury. "What did you do to her? Did you follow her? Did you—" "Enough!" he snapped, his voice cracking through the air like a whip. His mask crumbled, just for a heartbeat, and in that slip, I saw it. Guilt. Cold, ugly guilt. "You think you're so clever," he sneered. "Always pretending to be the victim. But you don't understand. That necklace was never hers. That money, none of it was hers. My father left it for me. I was the firstborn. I was the one cheated, not her." I gasped, clutching the chain tighter. "Your own mother's handwriting said otherwise. It was meant for Clara, her safety, her future." He leaned closer, eyes burning with hatred. "And look where that got her." My blood ran cold. The next morning, I told Detective Harris everything. The drawer, the necklace, my husband's confession. Harris listened carefully, his jaw tight. "We suspected as much," he said finally. "But hearing it from you confirms it. Mrs. Johnson, I need you to prepare yourself. If your husband is guilty, this case isn't about inheritance anymore. It's about murder." The word slammed into me like a blow. Murder. I thought back to Clara's laugh, her envy, her desperation to be seen. I never liked her, but I never wanted this. 2 days later, the police returned with a warrant. They searched every inch of our house, our cars, even the garden shed. I watched from the window as neighbors gathered, whispering behind their umbrellas. When the officers emerged, Harris held up a small leather diary. It was Clara's, and inside were pages that told a story darker than I could have imagined. Entries about her brother's cruelty, how he had kept the necklace from her since their mother's death, how he had threatened her whenever she asked about the inheritance, how, in the weeks before she disappeared, she feared he was planning something. The last entry read, "If anything happens to me, it will be him." When I read those words, I felt my knees weaken. All this time, I thought Clara was the greedy one, the reckless one, but she was only trying to survive. And my husband, the man I had lived with, trusted, shared a bed with, had been plotting against his own blood. As the police cuffed him and read him his rights, he glanced back at me. That same cold smirk twisted his lips, the same one he wore when he first clasped the necklace around my neck. "Congratulations," he hissed. "You've destroyed this family." But in my heart, I knew the truth. I hadn't destroyed it. He had, long before Clara ever vanished. The courtroom was cold, the air heavy with anticipation. Neighbors, friends, and even distant relatives had packed the benches, their whispers swirling like ghosts. But nothing could prepare me for what the prosecutor revealed that morning. Detective Harris took the stand first. His voice was steady, calm, but the weight of his words made my stomach churn. Clara Johnson's remains were discovered last week in a wooded area just 20 miles from her home. The cause of death: blunt force trauma to the head. Evidence shows she was struck with a heavy object. And DNA testing has confirmed traces of her brother's fingerprints on the necklace found in the victim's possession. Gasps erupted in the room. My heart sank. My husband's face paled, his arrogance finally stripped away under the brutal truth. But then Harris continued, and what he said next nearly knocked the breath from me. "We also recovered Clara's diary. It details repeated threats from her brother, Mr. Johnson. She wrote that he often told her she didn't deserve their mother's fortune, that she was a mistake. Her final entry, written just days before her death, reads, 'If I vanish, it will be him.'" The room fell silent. I closed my eyes, Clara's laughter flashing in my memory, her mischievous smirk whenever she teased me. She had been many things, selfish, vain, spoiled, but she didn't deserve to die this way. My husband's defense attorney tried to spin lies. "She was unstable," he argued. "She may have taken her own life, leaving a misleading trail of accusations." But the prosecutor was ready. He placed photo after photo on the screen. Footprints leading from Clara's abandoned car, matching my husband's boots. Bank statements showing money transfers. Text messages from Clara, pleading for him to stop harassing her. The jury's faces hardened with every new piece of evidence. When it was my husband's turn to testify, he stood tall, trying to project control. "I loved my sister," he said smoothly. "She was troubled, yes, but I always supported her. This is a setup. My wife," he turned to glare at me, "is bitter and vindictive. She wants to see me rot." I felt the eyes of the courtroom on me, but I didn't flinch, because in that moment, I realized this wasn't about me. It was about Clara and justice. During cross-examination, the prosecutor asked the question that shattered his defense completely. "Mr. Johnson, if you truly loved your sister, then explain why your fingerprints were found on the blood-stained necklace wrapped in her hand when we discovered her body." The silence that followed was deafening. My husband's lips parted, but no words came out. His mask had finally cracked. The trial stretched on for weeks, but the outcome was inevitable. The jury returned their verdict in less than 2 hours. "Guilty," the foreman announced, his voice cutting through the tense air. "On all counts: fraud, theft, and second-degree murder." The gavel struck. My husband collapsed into his chair, his once proud shoulders hunched like a broken man. But for me, there was no triumph, only sorrow. I walked out of the courthouse that day, the autumn wind biting my cheeks. Reporters swarmed, shoving microphones at me, demanding statements. Do you feel vindicated? Do you think justice was served? I pushed past them, whispering only one thing under my breath. Clara, I'm sorry. In the weeks that followed, I struggled to rebuild. The house felt empty, haunted by memories of laughter that had turned into screams. Sometimes, I caught myself listening for Clara's footsteps on the stairs, for her sharp voice calling my name. But then I'd remember. She was gone. One evening, I sat on the porch, holding the necklace. The police had returned it after the trial, no longer evidence. It gleamed in the dying light, heavy with its dark history. I thought about pawning it, burying it, burning it. But in the end, I locked it away in a safe. A reminder, not of wealth, but of betrayal and the price of greed. A letter arrived a month later, from Clara's best friend, a woman I barely knew. She always felt invisible, the letter read. But the day you gave her that necklace, she told me it was the first time she believed she mattered. She said, "Maybe someone finally sees me." I wanted you to know that. Despite everything, that moment gave her peace. Tears blurred the words. My gesture, born of spite, born of humiliation, had meant something to Clara, a small kindness in the storm of her life. And though my husband's actions had destroyed her, I vowed that her memory would not be erased by his cruelty. So I began to write. Our story. Her story. The truth of what happened behind closed doors. Not for fame, not for pity, but so others would know the cost of silence, the danger of unchecked greed, and the scars that betrayal leaves behind. As I penned the final lines, I felt Clara beside me, not in body, but in spirit. And for the first time since she vanished, I whispered into the quiet night, "You mattered, Clara. You always mattered." And though justice had come too late for her, it had come, and I would carry her memory like a flame in the dark for the rest of my days. And that was the chilling truth behind the gold necklace, a gift that exposed lies, tore apart a family, and cost Clara her life. Justice was served, but the scars will remain forever. But tell me, what would you have done in my place? Would you have kept the necklace, confronted him right there, or handed it to Clara like I did? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop them in the comments below. And now, let me give you a glimpse of our next shocking story. My son sent me a box of chocolate cake for my birthday, but I gave it to his mother-in-law, who collapsed after eating it. Trust me, you won't believe what happened next. Don't forget to hit that like button if this story kept you hooked, and subscribe so you never miss our next jaw-dropping tale.